Colin taps his spoon against his champagne glass, and the glass house gives him its full attention. "My mother built this place with family," he says. "Real family. Blood, sacrifice, loyalty." He looks directly at me. I'm seated beside the service door, where a cold ribbon of air slips around my ankles every time a server passes. Rachel has helped, obviously, but she isn't really family in the way the rest of us are. Colin raises his glass at his mother's retirement dinner and drinks. Diane stands so abruptly, her chair bumps the wall. She walks to Colin, takes the microphone from his hand, and sets it in front of me. "Rachel will give the speech," she says. "She's the only person here who can honor what I actually built." Colin's smile stays in place for half a second too long. He doesn't know about the meeting Diane and I had that morning. He doesn't know why the old brass key is looped around my wrist on its faded green ribbon, or why it will never open the same door again. 8 years earlier, Diane Mercer handed me that key at 4:17 in the morning while water ran down the walls of the glass house. Back then, I had been married to Colin for 11 months and still believed family emergencies announced themselves honestly. The phone rang at 2:30. Colin groaned, pulled a pillow over his head, and said, "Mom gets dramatic when it rains." Diane wasn't being dramatic. A pipe had split above the west restrooms, soaking the hallway carpet and threatening to creep into the main room, where 116 people were due for a wedding reception that afternoon. When we arrived, Diane was pushing a yellow mop bucket in a navy bathrobe and rubber boots. "You brought Rachel," she said to Colin. It wasn't gratitude. It sounded as if he'd brought a decorative lamp. "She's good at this stuff," Colin said. "What stuff?" He gestured toward the spreading water. "Bad stuff." Then he disappeared to find the shutoff valve. I called the emergency number on the insurance policy taped inside Diane's office cabinet. The answering service promised someone between 8 and noon. I called again, explained what was scheduled, and asked for the on-call supervisor. By 3:15, I had a water extraction crew coming from the next county. By 5, we had fans running, the wet section of carpet lifted, and a plumber replacing the joint above the ceiling. Colin spent most of that time arguing with the shutoff valve and then drove out for coffee. Diane watched me photograph the damaged drywall. "Why are you taking pictures of the baseboards?" "Because the adjuster will. I've had 3 floods. And you paid for the last 2 repairs yourself." "They said it was maintenance." "Did you have photographs?" Her mouth tightened. "I had a wet building." At 7, Colin returned with 2 coffees. "I didn't know what you wanted," he told me. "We've been together 4 years. Your order changes." "It has never changed." He handed me the one with whipped cream. I hate whipped cream. Diane took it from me, scraped the top off with a plastic spoon, and drank it without comment. The wedding happened. Guests used the east restrooms. The fans were hidden behind a rented folding screen, and Diane persuaded the DJ to turn the music up whenever the extraction equipment kicked on. At midnight, after the last centerpiece had been loaded into a florist's van, I found her sitting alone at one of the round tables. Her boots had left crescents of dried mud on the floor. She placed a brass key in my palm. A faded green ribbon was knotted through the hole at the top. "This is the side entrance," she said, "in case we have another emergency." Colin leaned over my shoulder. "I don't have one of those. You lose keys. One time. You left my van running outside a liquor store. I came back, without the van." He laughed because Diane's sharpest memories became family comedy if he laughed first. She closed my fingers around the key. "You notice things." That was the closest Diane came to saying she trusted me. The glass house had begun as a garden center in 1992, when Diane and her husband, Walter, sold potting soil, concrete bird baths, and expensive patio furniture nobody in Fairmont seemed to want. A wall of slanted glass panels formed the front of the building, giving the place its name and turning it into an oven every July. After Walter died, Diane discovered that the garden center owed more than the inventory was worth. She sold the plants at cost, kept the folding tables, and rented the empty showroom to a church group for an anniversary banquet. The next weekend, there was a retirement party. 2 months later, a wedding. By the time I met Colin, the glass house had a renovated kitchen, a mirrored bar, and bookings 18 months out. Diane still kept the original register behind the front desk, though it no longer worked. She liked to rest her hand on it when she told people she'd built the business one folding chair at a time. Colin said he had grown up there, though most of his stories involved hiding from work in the supply room. "He knows the place in his bones," Diane once told me. "He still can't find the breaker panel," I said. She stared at me, then laughed so hard she had to put down her wine. That laugh made me think we understood each other. For years, the brass key lived in the shallow blue bowl beside our front door. I used it often enough that the green ribbon softened at the edges. Diane called when a delivery came early, when a bride forgot a garment bag, when the ice machine made a sound like a raccoon dying in a washing machine. Colin called these situations mom emergencies and rolled his eyes while I put on my shoes. He came with me sometimes. More often, he said there was no point in both of us losing an evening. I didn't mind at first. My job as an insurance claims manager had trained me to enjoy solvable problems. A missing invoice could be found. A vendor could be called. Water either came through a pipe or it didn't. The glass house responded to effort in ways people rarely did. Diane also knew how to make help feel noticed. If I updated her vendor contracts, she sent me home with a foil pan of baked ziti. If I found a duplicate charge in the linen bill, she wrote the amount saved on a green sticky note and attached it to my coffee cup. "You're frightening," one note said. "Never leave." I stuck it on our refrigerator. Colin read it and grinned. "See? She loves you." That was how he translated his mother for me. Every demand was trust. Every criticism was respect. Every boundary she crossed was proof that she had finally accepted me. When Diane called our house the Annex, he said it was a joke. The Annex started with 6 boxes of ivory chair sashes. Then came 2 artificial boxwood panels, a galvanized drink tub, 4 wooden signs, and an arch in 3 pieces. Colin put everything against the back wall of our garage. "Just until Mom clears the upstairs closet," he said. "When is she doing that?" "After wedding season." "Which wedding season?" He kissed the side of my neck. "You're cute when you cross-examine." "I'm not being cute." "I know. That's what makes it cute." 3 years later, we still parked 1 car in the driveway because the glass house occupied half our garage. On Sunday mornings, I carried a laundry basket of receipts from Diane's office to our kitchen table. She kept financial records in a battered red ledger, despite using accounting software. The software was for taxes. The ledger, she said, was for truth. Colin usually made eggs while I reconciled deposits. He could be sweet in those hours. He sang badly to whatever played on the radio. He cut the burnt edges off my toast because I always forgot to adjust the setting after he made bagels. Sometimes he stood behind me, rested his chin on my head, and asked if his mother was secretly rich yet. She'd be less secretly solvent if she stopped buying candles by the pallet. People like candles. People like air conditioning, too. She's 3 weeks late paying the repair company. I'll talk to her. He rarely did, but I believed he meant to. That was the trouble with Colin. His intentions had beautiful manners. They held doors, ordered wine, and promised to call in the morning. By the time you noticed they had left, you felt rude for mentioning it. The retirement conversation began over meatloaf at Diane's house in early February. Her dining room was too warm, as always. She had placed a space heater beside her chair and was wearing a cardigan thick enough for a football game. "I'm done at the end of September," she announced. Colin stopped cutting his meatloaf. "Done how?" "Retired." "You can't retire. You own the place." "I can own something without standing in it 14 hours a day." He looked at me, thrilled and frightened in equal measure. Diane saw it. "You've always said you want to run it." "I do." "You've said a lot of things." "I've been waiting for you to be ready. I've been waiting for you to learn where we keep the workers' compensation certificates." "The office." "Where in the office?" He pointed vaguely with his fork. "The certificate area." Diane looked at me. Second drawer in the gray cabinet, I said. Of course she knows, Colin said. He smiled, but his eyes didn't. Rachel knows where everybody buried the bodies. Diane chewed slowly. I'll make a decision by summer. Whoever takes over needs to understand the entire operation. I understand it. You understand parties. I run a business. I brought in the Leland wedding. Rachel answered their first inquiry. I gave the tour. Yolanda closed the booking. I'm the one they remember. Diane reached for her water. That is not always an asset. On the drive home, Colin gripped the steering wheel hard enough for the tendons to show in his hands. She enjoys doing that. Doing what? Making me audition for something everyone knows is mine. The glass house is hers. You know what I mean? I watched bare trees flicker through the headlights. She needs to know you can run it. You could have backed me up. She asked where the certificates were. You didn't have to answer like a contestant on Jeopardy! I laughed because I thought he was joking. He didn't. The next morning, he apologized by bringing coffee to my home office. It had the correct amount of milk and no whipped cream. I'm under pressure, he said. This could change everything for us. For us, better income, more control over my schedule. Eventually, we could redo the kitchen. We? He crouched beside my chair. Don't do that. Do what? Turn one word into a deposition. I closed my laptop. If you take over the glass house, what exactly do you expect me to do? What you already do, maybe less once I'm in charge. That isn't an answer. He rubbed his thumb over my knee. I expect my wife to be in my corner. It sounded reasonable. Colin specialized in sentences that sounded reasonable until I tried to live inside them. A week later, I came home to find Diane in our garage with a man I didn't know. Both garage doors were open. Cold air rolled into the laundry room. The stranger wore a tape measure on his belt and was making notes on a clipboard while Diane pointed at the wall behind my gardening tools. If we stack the banquet chairs here, we can put the arches along that side, she said. I set my purse on the dryer. What's happening? Diane turned. There you are. This is Terry from Mercer Storage Solutions. Terry lifted 2 fingers in greeting. He was not a Mercer. The name was a coincidence I did not have the energy to appreciate. Why is Terry measuring my garage? Our garage, Colin said behind me. I hadn't heard him come down the stairs. Diane folded her arms. Storage at the hall is becoming impossible. This space is heated, secure, and 10 minutes away. It isn't available. Colin gave a small laugh. Rach, we already can't park both cars in here. You work from home 3 days a week. What does that have to do with where my car goes? Diane's face changed, not into anger, but injured patience. This would only be temporary. Like the chair sashes? Terry studied his clipboard with the concentration of a surgeon. Colin put his hand at the base of my back. To anyone watching, it might have looked affectionate. Can we talk inside? We can talk here. His fingers pressed lightly through my coat. Inside. Diane told Terry she would call him. He escaped so quickly, he left the side door swinging behind him. When he was gone, I noticed the key in Diane's hand. It was new, silver, with a square blue cap. I looked at Colin. You gave her a key to our house? For emergencies. She already has the garage code. It stopped working. I changed it. Exactly. Diane slipped the key into her cardigan pocket. I didn't ask him to keep it from you. That was meant to place her on my side. Somehow it made the room tilt more. You knew I didn't know. She glanced at Colin. He removed his hand from my back. I was going to tell you. When? Tonight. Before or after you measured the garage. He exhaled through his nose. This is what I mean. Everything becomes a trial. No, a trial happens after discovery. I'm still discovering. Diane almost smiled. The impulse flickered across her face before she suppressed it. Colin saw. You two love this, he said. Love what? Diane asked. making me the idiot in the room. He walked into the house and shut the laundry room door hard enough to rattle its frame. Diane and I stood in the open garage with the cold moving around us. After a moment, she pulled the new key from her pocket. "I can give it back." I held out my hand. She looked down at my palm, and for the first time since the flood, she seemed uncertain whether I had earned a key or merely been useful enough to carry one. Diane placed the key in my palm. It was still warm from her hand. "I thought he'd told you," she said. "No, you didn't." Her chin lifted. "Excuse me? You just said you knew I didn't know." "I knew by the time Terry got here. Colin said you were on a conference call and that he'd handle it. So you kept going. This is an empty wall in a garage, Rachel. We're not bulldozing your bedroom." There it was, Diane's gift for shrinking an offense until objecting to it became embarrassing. I curled my fingers around the key. "The garage isn't available. You've made that clear." She walked to her car without waiting for me to close the garage doors. Inside, Colin was standing at the kitchen counter, eating sliced turkey straight from the package. I set the silver key beside him. Mom gave it back. "You embarrassed her." "She came into our house with a contractor. It was the garage. The garage is part of our house." He laughed once sharply. "Do you hear yourself?" "All the time. It's one of the advantages of speaking." He shoved the turkey back into the refrigerator. "She's offering me the biggest opportunity of my life, and you're acting like she broke in to steal jewelry. She is not offering you anything yet." His face went still. I regretted the sentence as soon as I saw where it landed, but regret did not make it untrue. "That's what this is," he said. "You don't think I can do it. I think you should know what doing it requires." "And you do?" "I know some of it." "You know paperwork." "I know enough to understand there's more than giving tours and remembering which brides like bourbon." He stepped away from the counter. "You're an insurance adjuster. Claims manager. Fine. You sit in this kitchen and move numbers around. That doesn't mean you know my mother's business better than I do." The red ledger was on the table behind him. A green, sticky note marked the page where Diane's January liquor invoice had been entered twice. I looked at it. So did Colin. He picked it up and dropped it into the laundry basket. "That needs to go back to the hall anyway." "I haven't finished." "Mom can finish it." "Okay." The word stopped him. "Okay, I'll take it back." He waited for the argument he had prepared. When it didn't arrive, some of his anger lost its footing. "Rach, come on." I carried the basket to my office and closed the door. For the next 2 weeks, Colin behaved like a man performing a good marriage for a hidden camera. He cooked dinner. He replaced the furnace filter without being reminded. He sent me a calendar invitation for Glass House Transition Conversation, then added a wine glass emoji to make it playful. I declined it. At night, he rested his hand on my hip and asked if we were going to be weird forever. I said, "We're weird now." You know what I mean. I did. He meant difficult. He meant inconvenient. He meant that the usual route back to normal was blocked, and he didn't know another way home. Diane did not call me. Yolanda did, on a Thursday afternoon. "There are 3 deposits in the software that don't match the bank," she said. Yolanda had managed the glass house floor for 14 years. She could carry 6 dinner plates without a tray and stop a drunken groomsman with one look. Her voice was low and unhurried, which made bad news sound premeditated. "Did you ask Diane?" "She told me to ask Colin." "And?" "He told me to ask you." I closed the claim file on my screen. "Send him the dates." I sent him the dates. "Then he has what he needs." Silence. "Rachel," she said, "are you and Diane fighting?" "No." That sounded expensive. I'm stepping back. "Does Colin know?" "He's the one who told you to call me." Yolanda sighed. "I'll find the deposits." An hour later, Colin texted, "Why are you making this harder than it needs to be?" I typed, "I'm working." 3 dots appeared, vanished, and returned. "So am I." That evening, he arrived carrying a bottle of wine from the case Diane kept for clients. Peace offering, he said. To whom? He set it on the counter. See, this is why we can't get anywhere. We haven't tried to get anywhere. I scheduled a conversation. You scheduled a meeting about your mother's business, our future. I opened the refrigerator and moved a carton of eggs that didn't need moving. Colin leaned against the counter. Mom wants to renovate the kitchen before she retires. Okay, it needs work. I know. The range is 15 years old. The prep sinks don't meet the caterer's needs. If we do it right, we can charge more for in-house packages. We? The glass house? I shut the refrigerator. How much? She's getting estimates. How much, Colin? Probably 40 to 60. 1,000? No, Rachel, dollars. Yes, 1,000. Does she have it? She has some. How much is some? He rubbed his jaw. I knew you'd do this. Ask numbers? Interrogate every idea until nobody wants it anymore. How is she paying for the rest? He looked toward the wine bottle. My stomach tightened before he spoke. We could help. With what? We have savings. We have $38,000 because we've spent 5 years building an emergency fund, and now there's an opportunity. For your mother. For us. Once I take over, the improved kitchen makes money. She hasn't chosen you. She will. You said 40 to 60. Our entire savings wouldn't cover the low end. She could finance some. We could put in 25. The number came out too smoothly. You've discussed an amount with her. It was a conversation. You told Diane we would give her $25,000? I said we could. Did you tell her I agreed? I told her you understand investments. I stared at him. He straightened. That's not the same thing. You showed her our account balance. I didn't show her anything. How did she know what we could afford? She asked what we had saved. And you told her. She's my mother. The sentence sat between us, complete in his mind. I picked up the wine bottle. There was a green sticker over the label with a handwritten inventory number. This belongs to the hall. Jesus, Rachel. You keep bringing me things that belong to the hall and calling them mine. He slapped his palm against the counter. The noise startled both of us. I am trying to build something. Then use your money. It is my money. Half of it is. I make more than half. Not consistently. His eyes narrowed. You've been keeping score. No, I've been keeping us solvent. He pushed away from the counter and paced to the sink. This is exactly why Mom doesn't trust you. It took me a moment to answer. I thought she did. She trusts you to find mistakes. That's different from trusting someone with the future. And she trusts you with it. She knows I'm family. He saw my face and softened his voice. Rachel, you married into this. You don't get the same vote. The dishwasher hummed. Somewhere in its cycle, a spray arm knocked lightly against a plate. 3 small taps, then silence, then 3 again. I thought about the key Diane had put into my palm after the flood. I thought about the green notes and the foil pans and every Sunday morning I had spent making her numbers tell the truth. What vote do I get? I asked. In what? My money, my house, my time? Which one is mine? That's dramatic. Answer me. You get a vote in our marriage. You don't get to overrule me about my family. But my savings are available to your family. Our savings. And my garage. Our garage. And my work. You offered to help 8 years ago. He threw up his hands. Then don't help. I nodded. Fine. He rolled his eyes and reached for the wine. I took it with me when I left the room. The next morning, I opened an individual checking account at the bank where my salary was already deposited. I changed the direct deposit, calculated my half of the mortgage and household expenses, and scheduled transfers into the joint account. Then I removed the Glass House credit card from the grocery delivery app, our home improvement account, and the online office supplier Diane used under my login. I emailed her the password reset link. At noon, I carried the red ledger and the basket of receipts to my car. The brass key was still in the blue bowl by the front door. I took it with me. Yolanda was supervising a table setup when I arrived at the glass house. She wore black slacks, a gray blouse, and the expression of someone who had already discovered 3 fresh problems. "Put the champagne wall on the south side," she told a server. "If it's in direct sunlight, we'll be serving soup by 6. She followed me into the office. I placed the ledger on Diane's desk. Yolanda looked at the basket. "That feels ceremonial. I'm not doing the books anymore." "Diane, no?" "She does now." "You want me to pretend I'm surprised? I'd appreciate it." Yolanda widened her eyes. My God! I laughed in spite of myself. Then she touched the ledger with 2 fingers. "Colin can't reconcile this. He can learn. He thinks matching a deposit means wearing the same color tie." "Yolanda, I'm not criticizing. I'm describing." The side door opened. Diane came in carrying a cardboard tray with 3 coffees. Her eyes went first to the basket, then to me. "What's that?" "Your January receipts. The duplicate liquor invoice is marked. The linen company still owes you a credit from December." She set the coffees down. Mine had the right amount of milk. "I was coming to talk to you." "About the kitchen?" Diane glanced at Yolanda. Yolanda lifted her coffee. "I suddenly need to supervise sunlight." When she was gone, Diane shut the office door. "Colin told me you misunderstood. He told you we had $25,000 available. He said you'd be cautious." "That's a yes." "He was excited. He told you what we have in savings." "I didn't ask for your bank statements. You asked what we could contribute." "I asked him whether he had skin in the game." "With my skin?" Diane pressed her lips together. "That's colorful. It's accurate. The glass house has supported Colin for years. It will support both of you when I step back. If it makes enough money. It does. Not enough for the salary he expects, the renovation you want, and the debt it would create." Her face hardened. "You don't know every detail. I know the books. You process receipts. The cruelty of it was almost elegant. 8 years of trust reduced to clerical work in 4 words." I slid the brass key across her desk. The faded green ribbon trailed behind it. Her eyes dropped to the key. "What is this?" "The side entrance. I know what it opens. Then you know where to keep it." She didn't touch it. "You're throwing away our relationship because Colin spoke out of turn?" "No, I'm finding out what the relationship was." "That sounds like something you practiced in the car." "I practiced saying nothing. It didn't help." Diane turned toward the window in the office door. Through the narrow glass, Yolanda was adjusting a tablecloth while a delivery driver waited with a clipboard. "We have 2 events this weekend," she said. "I know." The florist changed her delivery time. "Then Colin should update the schedule. He has a tour. Then he'll have to manage both." She turned back. "You want him to fail." "I want to stop preventing it." Diane flinched as if I had raised my voice. I left the key on her desk and drove home. That Saturday, Colin missed the florist. At 11:20, he called me twice. At 11:31, Diane called. At 11:40, Yolanda sent a photograph of 12 centerpieces sitting on the sidewalk outside a locked side door. I put my phone face down and finished cleaning the kitchen. The florist charged a second delivery fee. Colin paid it from our joint account. I transferred back only his half of the household expenses and sent him the receipt. He came home after midnight smelling like beer, cut flowers, and industrial dish soap. "You let them sit outside," he said. "I was here." "You saw the calls." "Yes." "One of those arrangements was damaged. Then you should file a claim with the florist." He laughed without humor. "You enjoyed that." "No, that's worse." He went upstairs. 10 minutes later, I heard him open the shallow blue bowl beside the front door, searching for the brass key he hadn't noticed was gone. Ceramic scraped against wood, then scraped again. "Where's the key?" Colin called. I dried my hands on a dish towel. "Which key?" He came back into the kitchen, holding the empty blue bowl. "You know which key." "The one to the glass house belongs to your mother." "I have a tour tomorrow morning. Then ask her for it." "It's after midnight." "So is your tour?" His shirt was wrinkled, and there was a green smear across one cuff. For a second, he looked less angry than exhausted. "I don't understand what you want from me," he said. "I want you to run the business you said you could run. You've been part of it for 8 years. I was helping. Family helps." The words sounded different after our last conversation. I turned back to the sink. Diane has the key. He stood there long enough for the motion light outside to switch off. Then he carried the blue bowl to the table and set it down beside my laptop. "You know, she won't let me fail. That isn't the same as succeeding." He slept in the guest room. On Sunday morning, Diane drove over with the brass key. I watched from my office window as Colin met her in the driveway wearing the navy suit he used for tours. They talked for 10 minutes. Diane kept looking toward the house. She didn't come inside. The following week, every loose thread I had been holding began to pull. A rental company called me about 60 Chiavari chairs Colin had reserved without confirming the delivery window. I directed them to him. The bakery emailed for approval on the retirement cake design. I forwarded it. Diane left a voicemail asking whether I had the liquor tax login. I sent the recovery instructions and copied Colin. By Wednesday, Colin had stopped pretending my withdrawal was temporary. "You changed the vendor contact sheet," he said over dinner. "I removed my number." "You could have told me." "I did." "You said, then don't help." I was angry. "You were clear." He pushed rice around his plate. "Mom says you're trying to make a point. I'm trying to make dinner. She thinks you're threatened by the glass house. I am threatened by what you think it entitles you to." He leaned back. "There, that. You talk like I'm taking something from you." I looked at his plate, then at mine. I had cooked the chicken, bought the groceries, and cleaned the pan while he answered messages from clients he called his. "You are," I said. 2 days later, I came home to find the side door unlocked. A strip of muddy cardboard lay across the laundry room floor. In the garage, 4 men were stacking banquet chairs against the wall where my gardening tools had been. The tools were piled on top of the lawnmower. Diane stood near the open door with a clipboard. "What are you doing?" One of the men stopped with 2 chairs balanced against his shoulder. Diane lowered the clipboard. "The storage room ceiling is leaking." "So you brought everything here?" "It's for 1 night, maybe 2. "How did you get in?" Her eyes moved toward the silver key in the side door lock. Colin stepped out from behind a rack of folded linens. I gave it to her. The movers became fascinated by the concrete floor. "When?" I asked. "This morning." She gave that key back. "To you," he said. "It's my house, too." Diane took a step forward. "We have a reception tomorrow. I didn't have time for another debate. You had time to hire 4 men. They were already at the hall. Take it back. The ceiling is open. Rent a storage unit. For 1 night? I don't care if it's for 1 hour." Colin came between us, keeping his voice low. "Don't do this in front of people. You did this in front of people." One of the movers set down his chairs. "Ma'am, where do you want us to put these?" "In the truck," I said. Diane's nostrils flared. "We're paying them by the hour." "Then we should stop talking." The chairs went back onto the truck. The linens followed. The boxwood panels, drink tubs, arches, wooden signs, and 6 boxes of ivory sashes already stored in our garage went with them. I found the estimate Terry had emailed after his visit and handed it to Diane. "There's a storage facility 12 minutes from the hall, climate-controlled, ground-level access." "You called him?" Colin asked. "He was in my garage with a tape measure." Diane took the estimate without looking at it. "You're enjoying this." "No, I'm getting my garage back." "This was part of your life until 5 minutes ago. It was part of my life because nobody asked what it cost me." After the truck left, Colin shut both garage doors and followed me into the laundry room. "You made her look ridiculous. I changed the code because she came in without permission. You gave her a key because I changed the code. Every boundary I make becomes a puzzle for you to solve. It's my key to give. Then you can give her yours." "What does that mean?" I called a locksmith. He arrived the next afternoon. Colin stood in the driveway while the man replaced the side door lock and rekeyed the front and back doors to match. When he finished, he handed us 4 identical keys with black plastic caps. I gave 2 to Colin and kept 2. "What am I supposed to do with both?" Colin asked. "Whatever you want." He gave one to Diane 2 days later. I knew because she left it on our kitchen counter beneath a green sticky note. "I won't enter again," he insisted. I picked up the note, read it twice, and sat down. Diane had returned the key. Colin had given it away. She had recognized the danger before he had. That should have made me feel better. Instead, it clarified the shape of the problem. The missed florist became a story Colin told about me. By the time it reached Diane, I had ignored a wedding emergency out of spite. The storage argument became proof that I wanted the glass house to struggle. My separate bank account became evidence that I was preparing to leave. I learned this from Yolanda, who called while I was standing in line at the pharmacy. "Colin says you froze the savings," she said. "I moved my salary. He says you canceled a kitchen loan. There was no loan." I didn't think so. A man ahead of me was arguing about a coupon. I moved out of line. "Why are you telling me?" "Because Diane is listening to him. She usually does. Not like this. She's scared. Of retiring? Of being wrong about him. That landed harder than I expected. What does she think I'm doing? Trying to make him fail, so she won't choose him. I don't care who she chooses." Yolanda was quiet. "Rachel," she said, "that might be the one thing she can't believe." The glass house had a bad month. A caterer refused to serve a corporate dinner because Colin hadn't sent an updated insurance certificate. He found another caterer at a higher price, but the client demanded a credit. Payroll went out a day late after he entered the processing date incorrectly. Diane covered the refrigeration repair with her personal card because Colin missed the service window and the emergency fee pushed the invoice over the business limit. None of it destroyed the place. That was almost worse for him. Each mistake was ordinary, fixable, and entirely his. He began coming home later. Sometimes he smelled like the glass house kitchen, onions, bleach, scorched coffee. He stopped singing in the mornings. One night, I found him asleep at the table with his laptop open. A spreadsheet glowed beside his arm, columns misaligned and cells filled with red error messages. I stood there longer than I should have. This was the man who cut the burnt edges off my toast, the man who once drove through a thunderstorm to pick me up when my car died, then made me laugh so hard in the tow truck that the driver missed our exit. Loving him had never been an accounting trick. I couldn't cancel the years that had worked just because I finally understood the terms. I reached toward the laptop. Then Colin woke. His eyes focused on my hand. "I knew it," he said. I pulled back. "Knew what?" "You can't stand watching me figure it out." I was going to close the screen. "You were going to check my work." I wasn't. "Go ahead." He turned the laptop toward me. "Find what I did wrong. That's your favorite part." "I don't want this job." "But you want me to be bad at it." I looked at him across the table. "You would rather fail than admit I helped you." He shut the laptop. "I would rather fail than spend the rest of my life asking permission to breathe." The sentence was so close to my own pain that I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "Now you know how it feels." He took the laptop upstairs. The commercial credit application arrived in our mailbox 3 weeks later. It was not an approval or a contract. It was a preliminary application from a regional lender, addressed to Colin at our home. The glass house was listed as the business. Under additional financial support, he had entered our address and an estimated household liquidity range that included my savings. No signature appeared beneath my name. My name wasn't on it at all. That made it cleaner and uglier. I drove to the glass house with the papers on the passenger seat. Diane and Colin were in the main room arguing about table layouts for the retirement dinner. Sample linens covered 3 tables, ivory, charcoal, and a green that matched the old ribbon on the brass key. Colin saw the envelope in my hand. "You opened my mail?" "It was addressed to our house. It had my name on it." "You listed our household as financial support." Diane stepped between the tables. "What application?" I handed it to her. Colin's face flushed. "It's preliminary." "You told me there was no loan," I said. "There isn't. You're applying for one. I'm exploring options with my savings." "I didn't use your name. You used our liquidity." Diane read the first page, then the second. "I told you not to submit anything." "I didn't submit it. They sent this after I called." "You gave them figures," I said. "They're estimates. They're accurate." He looked away. Diane folded the papers once. "Rachel, this doesn't obligate you." "That's your defense?" "It's a conversation with a lender, not a withdrawal from your account. He keeps volunteering pieces of my life, and you keep telling me they haven't been taken yet." Colin stepped closer. "Because nothing has been taken. Except my work, my privacy, my right to be consulted." "Oh, for God's sake." Diane slapped the folded application against the table. "Enough." We both looked at her. She pointed at me. "You are humiliating him." My mouth went dry. "He has made mistakes," she continued, "but you have turned every mistake into a public test. You returned your key. You abandoned the books. You let vendors suffer to prove you were necessary. What did you think would happen?" "I thought he would learn. You thought I would choose you." I stared at her. Diane's anger wavered, but Colin was watching her, and she gathered it again. "This is my retirement," she said. "My business, my son. I will not let you use all 3 to punish him." I looked at the green linen stretched across the nearest table. It was too bright under the afternoon light. "Then don't," I said. I left the credit application with her. The invitation to the retirement dinner arrived by email that evening. Colin was listed as Master of Ceremonies. Yolanda, the staff, and 6 long-standing vendors were named in the acknowledgments. I wasn't. When I asked Colin about it, he kept his eyes on the television. "It's for people who officially worked there." "So I didn't?" "You made it clear you were helping as a favor." He turned up the volume. I went upstairs and opened the closet. I didn't pack a suitcase. I took down the blue overnight bag and placed it on the bed. Then I sat beside it until the room grew dark. At 9:30, my phone rang. Diane's name appeared on the screen. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Her voice was quieter than I had ever heard it. "I need you to come to the glass house tomorrow morning," she said. "Why?" There was a long pause. "Because I opened the ledger." "Which page?" I asked. "All of them." She hung up before I could answer. The blue bag stayed on the bed overnight. Colin came in after midnight, looked at it, and loosened his tie without asking. "Going somewhere?" "I haven't decided." "Is that supposed to scare me?" "No." He opened the closet and shoved hangers aside harder than necessary. "Mom called you." "Yes." "What did she want?" "She asked me to come in." His hands stopped. "Why?" "You should ask her." He gave me a tired smile. "So we're doing secrets now." I looked at the open closet between us. Apparently, that's another thing we share. Diane was at her desk when I arrived at 8. The red ledger lay open in front of her. The preliminary credit application sat beside it with several pages of printed reports. Yolanda stood at the file cabinet, feeding old contracts into neat stacks. A coffee waited for me. I left it where it was. Diane tapped a page in the ledger. Colin entered 3 events in the projected revenue that aren't booked. "They were inquiries," Yolanda said. "He marked them probable. He offered all 3 discounts to close before your retirement dinner. They haven't signed." Diane looked at me. "Did you know?" "I knew about 2. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I stopped doing the books. That isn't what I asked." "No, Diane. I didn't call you from my own kitchen to report that your son was exaggerating sales at the business you said wasn't mine." She looked back at the ledger. Yolanda slid a folder across the desk. These are the vendor complaints since March. There were 7. 2 were minor. 3 involved late responses. 1 was from the caterer who had refused the corporate dinner. The last was from a linen supplier Colin had accused of losing an order that he had never finalized. Diane read each one. He told me that company was becoming unreliable. They told him they needed a deposit, Yolanda said. He said they waived deposits for us. They did when Rachel confirmed orders. Diane closed her eyes. The old register sat behind her, its yellowed keys fixed in place. She rested one hand on it the way she did when telling strangers how the glass house began. This time, it looked less like a symbol than something she needed to keep from falling. "What salary did he put into the transition budget?" she asked me. I didn't see the final number. Yolanda named it. Diane's eyes opened. "That's more than I pay myself." He said he'd be taking on executive responsibility. "You take on executive responsibility." Yolanda shrugged. "My title says floor manager." For a long time, the only sound in the office was the heating vent clicking above us. Diane finally looked at her. "How long have you known?" "That he wasn't ready?" "Years. And you never said anything." "You didn't ask. When Rachel answered questions you didn't like, you called her a receipt processor." Diane flinched. Yolanda continued in the same calm voice. "I need this job. I'm good at it. I wasn't going to insult the owner's son and hope the owner discovered a sense of humor." Diane's mouth twitched despite herself. "You've insulted me plenty." "Only about tablecloths." I pulled out the chair opposite the desk. "What do you want from me?" I asked. Diane folded her hands over the ledger. "I want to know whether the glass house can survive the year if I don't hand it to Colin." "It can." Her expression sharpened. "You answered quickly." "Because Colin isn't the business." Yolanda turned away, but I saw her smile. Diane did not. "Can you prove it?" "Yes. Will you?" There it was again. The open door, the emergency, the assumption that I would walk through because I knew how. "I'm not coming back." "I didn't ask you to. You were about to." She glanced toward the untouched coffee. "I was going to ask you to organize the records one final time. I'll pay you." "No." "Rachel, I will show Yolanda what reports you need. I'll give her a list. She'll do it, and you'll pay her." Yolanda looked at me, surprised. Diane leaned back. "You're making this very difficult." "For whom?" The question stayed in the room until she looked down. "For me," she said. It was the first honest answer she had given me. I spent an hour with Yolanda identifying the actual booked revenue, deposits due, fixed costs, vendor credits, and the kitchen repairs the hall could afford without borrowing against anyone's household. We built a transition checklist and assigned every item to a paid employee. Diane watched us. When we finished, I slid the checklist toward her. "She already runs most of the place," I said. "Give her the authority to match the responsibility." Yolanda placed both palms on the desk. "I'm standing right here." "I know." "You could ask whether I want it." Diane looked up. "Do you?" Yolanda considered her. "With a new title, a contract, and a salary that doesn't make me laugh." Diane reached for a pen. "Sit down." I left them negotiating. Colin was waiting in the parking lot. He pushed away from his car as I came outside. "What did you tell her?" "The truth." "Which version?" "The one in the ledger." He stepped into my path. "She canceled our meeting with the lender." "There was no loan, remember?" "Stop doing that." "Quoting you? Making everything sound dirty. You used our finances to make yourself look stronger. I was trying to keep her from handing my future to some outsider. Yolanda has worked here 14 years. She's an employee. So was I, except without the pay or title." His jaw tightened. "This is about you." "It became about me when you offered things that belonged to me." "I offered our family's support. You told me I wasn't family when I asked for a vote. I said you married into my family. That isn't the same thing." It is when you need something. He looked past me toward the slanted glass front of the building. She called me a liar. Were the bookings signed? They were close. Were they signed? He shoved his hands into his coat pockets. You know, one day you're going to run out of people willing to fail your tests. I walked around him. Over the following 6 weeks, Diane did something I had never seen her do. She changed her mind slowly enough to understand why. She reviewed every contract with Yolanda. She called vendors and listened while they described the difference between dealing with Colin and depending on him. She discovered that he was excellent at tours, good with anxious clients, and genuinely creative when an event needed personality. She also discovered he ignored details once they stopped being flattering. Her decision was not to sell the glass house or give it away. She kept ownership and delayed the kitchen renovation. Yolanda became general manager under a 3-year employment contract with authority over staff, purchasing, and operations. Colin was offered a salaried sales position reporting to her. He refused to answer. At home, he spoke to me through logistics. The electric bill is due. Your car is blocking mine. Mom needs the black serving trays. The black serving trays had already left with the storage truck, but I didn't correct him. I moved the blue bag from our bed to the guest room and began sleeping there. I met with a mediator recommended through my employer's assistance program. I did not file anything yet. I wanted to know what leaving would mean before I turned it into a threat. Colin found the mediator's card in my purse while looking for a phone charger. You're planning a divorce? I'm planning to understand my choices. Does Mom know? This isn't about your mother. He held up the card. Everything is suddenly separate. Your money, your choices, your room. I asked you what part of my life belonged to me. You never answered. You don't get to dismantle a marriage because I talked to a lender. That isn't why. Then tell me why. Because you keep seeing my consent as an obstacle you can work around. His face changed, not with recognition but frustration. I thought you were my partner. So did I. 3 days before the retirement dinner, Diane asked me to meet her at a diner across from the glass house. She ordered coffee and a piece of lemon pie she barely touched. I've decided on Yolanda, she said. I know. She told you. She asked me to review the wording in her contract about weekend availability. Diane frowned. You said you weren't coming back. I'm not. I answered one question. You always do that. Do what? Draw a line, then reach across it when someone genuinely needs you. That's how lines work. They're not walls. She turned her fork sideways through the pie. I thought if I made Colin responsible, he would become responsible. I think he thought that, too. I told him the business would be his someday. Walter told him the same thing. She pushed the plate away. After Walter died, I didn't know how to raise a man and save a failing building at the same time. You chose the building. I thought the building was for him. The contradiction hurt her more than any accusation I could have made. Does he know about Yolanda? I asked. He knows I offered him sales. That isn't what I asked. No. Diane, if I tell him now, he will turn the dinner into a funeral for himself. I want one evening that belongs to what I built. You're still managing him. I know. She said it so plainly that I had nothing to add. On the morning of the dinner, she called again. The main room smelled of coffee, floor polish, and the greenery being attached to the centerpieces. Yolanda was arguing with a rental driver about charcoal napkins that appeared navy beneath the lights. Diane waited in the office. The brass key lay on the red ledger, its faded green ribbon coiled beside it. I need you to give the retirement speech, she said. No. I haven't asked the question yet. You did. Colin wrote one. Then let him give it. It's 6 minutes about legacy in golf. That sounds like Colin. I need someone to tell the truth about this place. You didn't like it last time. I didn't understand the price. She pushed the key toward me. I don't want that. You'll need it tonight. The main entrance will be crowded. Come through the side. I can knock. Rachel. Her fingers stayed on the key. Please. I took it, but I did not put it in my purse. I looped the green ribbon around my wrist. One speech, I said. It doesn't buy anything back. I know. When I arrived that evening, my place card was at the family table between Diane and Colin. I left to help Yolanda locate a missing copy of the vendor list. When I returned, my card had been moved to the table beside the service door. Colin's cousin occupied my original seat. I held up the card. Did you move this? Colin adjusted his tie. There wasn't room. There was 20 minutes ago. Don't start tonight. He walked toward the microphone. By the time he lifted his glass, I understood what he had planned. If Diane would not give him the business privately, he would make her choose him publicly. My mother built this place with family, he said. Real family. Blood, sacrifice, loyalty. Then he looked at me and declared that I wasn't really family. Diane took the microphone from him and placed it before me. Rachel will give the retirement speech, she said. She's the only person here who can honor what I actually built. Colin's smile failed. I stood with the old key against my wrist. The glass house was built by a woman who could look at an empty room and see people gathering in it, I began. Diane remembered which vendors came through during lean years. She knew which pipes froze, which doors stuck in summer, and exactly how many chairs could fit in this room before the fire marshal became unfriendly. A few people laughed. Diane looked down at her hands. She built this place by keeping promises. Some of those promises were written in contracts. Most were carried by people whose names never appeared on the building. I thanked the cooks, servers, vendors, and maintenance crews. I thanked Diane for surviving the years when every booked Saturday kept the lights on for another month. Then I turned toward Yolanda. The next promise Diane is keeping is to the people who made this business worthy of a future. Beginning Monday, the glass house will operate under its new general manager, Yolanda Price. Yolanda's hand rose to her mouth. Diane had not told her the announcement would happen that night. Colin set down his glass. I finished by saying, a key can let you into a building. It can't make the building yours. What makes a place yours is how you care for the people already inside it. I placed the microphone on the table. Colin caught my arm near the kitchen doors. You knew. Yes. You stood there and did that to me. Your mother made the decision. You announced it. You handed me the room. Diane approached before he could answer. You chose her over me, he said. I chose the business over a promise I should never have made. I'm your son, and I am still your mother. That does not make you qualified for everything I own. He looked at me. You poisoned her. Diane's expression hardened. Rachel spent years cleaning up after both of us. I mistook that for permission. Colin walked out through the service door. At home, he wanted me to call Diane and fix it. Tell her you won't work with Yolanda, he said. Tell her the transition needs family support. You told a room full of people I wasn't family. I was angry. You were clear. He stared at me, and I watched him recognize his own words. A wife protects her husband from humiliation, he said. A husband protects his wife from being used. So, that's it? I thought of the blue bag waiting in the guest room. You keep asking me to prove I'm loyal by disappearing, I said. I'm done. I left that night. Our separation was ordinary and expensive. We sold the house because neither of us could comfortably buy out the other. Colin took a sales job with a hotel group 2 counties away. Diane kept his offered position open for 3 months, then filled it. I saw her occasionally. We spoke carefully at first, like people crossing a floor that had recently flooded. A year after Yolanda took over, she invited me to an anniversary dinner at the glass house. I entered through the front. Diane met me beneath the slanted glass. She held out the old brass key, polished now on a new green ribbon. For emergencies? I asked. For belonging. I closed her fingers around it. Walk me inside, I said. She did.